to the situation in Syria. Remember this from the president in 2013?
I will not put American boots on the ground in Syria. I will not pursue an open-ended action like Iraq or Afghanistan.
Well, that one there, good.
Stand by here with 3, 2.
Well, that was then. This is now, and as many as 50 U.S. Special Forces troops are headed to Syria. In the meantime, the U.S. is stepping up airstrikes. For more on all this, Charlie Sennett's here. Charlie is the founder and executive director of the Ground Truth Project in partnership with WGBH and has 25 years of experience covering the front lines of wars and insurgencies all over the world. Good to see you, Charlie.
Good to see you, Jim.
What do you make of the fact that while President Obama himself announced the notion that we're going to keep up to 5,500 troops in Afghanistan beyond his presidency, here he didn't say a word. Nothing on Friday, nothing. That is significant, isn't it?
I think it is significant. I think this is intended as a covert operation, but he's realizing you can't have someone die in Syria and then have to explain this. I think they wanted the element of surprise. I think they want to go in stealth, and I think they're intending to do this right. But I do think the clip reveals something big, which is this is a president who came in with the country in 2 wars. He vowed to end them both, and he'll now hand over to the next president.
3
wars.
3 wars, counting Syria. You know, Josh Earnest, who's the only, his communications person, the only person to speak to this, on Friday when he did, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, the natural extension of our, this is not a paraphrase, are building the capacity of local forces. Is that a fair statement, or is this a real change of course for the administration?
I think this is a real change of course because they're recognizing now that ISIS is really genuinely a committed foe, and they are determined, and we need to confront them in a much more aggressive way. You know, we've talked about this for a long time. I think this is, from every analyst I talk to who really knows the ground, this is needed, this is necessary. The question is it too little too late?
Well, speaking of that, actually, somebody I almost never quote when it comes to these issues, I think made a point other than the gratuitous criticism. Here's Donald Trump.
Well, I think we have a president just doesn't know what he's doing. You either do it or you don't do it. 50 people, he puts 50 people.
So you would put more?
You either do it or you don't do it.
Forget again, the editorial, the president doesn't know what he's doing.
Right.
I know nothing about military operations. 50 people in something this big seems to me like you either do it or you don't do it. Is this doing it?
Well, you know, Donald Trump's intuition on things aside, this isn't a gambling table. It's not the black and the red. It's not like I would put more down. I
Forget
think the
Trump.
president,
is that not a legitimate question?
It is legitimate to say, is this enough? Are these just fits and starts? Are the steps too hesitant? That's a real criticism. But
is it a goal to open the door with something that doesn't bother the American people because the numbers are so small, and once the door is open, then you can drive another 50, another 100, another 500 through?
Or both, right? I mean, basically, I think what's unfair to the president would be to think that he's not thinking this through in a way that he cares or that he's trying to be manipulative. I think that goes too far. I think the president is hesitant. He's more professorial than he is presidential sometimes. And in the Middle East, you do need to go and you need to strike boldly. And I do think that's missing from this. I think it's a fair criticism.
Is this all, I shouldn't say all, is this predominantly a response to Putin's involvement in Syria? One, so that the president, obviously Putin backing Assad, but secondly, so the president of the United States doesn't look weak in the face of this bold, even if irresponsible move by Putin?
I don't know that we can say it's predominantly the reason, but certainly the fact that Russia is now playing the game in the Middle East, and it is exerting its pressure and its influence, and having success in exerting its influence, I think the United States is watching that and realizing it's losing out on its ability to help set the trajectory of history in the Middle East. And you know, we've had a lot of failed and flawed policies in the Middle East, but I do think we want to still have a presence there, and I think there is an element of that in this.
Speaking of presence, and you said a minute ago he promised to end 2 wars, and now the likelihood is going to leave a successor with 3. Your incredible work on Afghanistan, you call it Forever Stand. couldn't the same thing potentially be said now about Iraq, about Syria, the direction we're going? I don't know if it's going to be America's longest wars, but that is the trend, that is the direction in which we're going, is it not?
In 2003, when I first met General Petraeus, I was on the ground with him in Iraq, and he asked the question then, and it's the question we need to think about now, and that is, how does this end? It's the first question I ever heard Petraeus ask. This is before he was a rock star, before the scandal, when he was really looked upon as this up-and-coming general.
How does it end?
It's still the question.
Jimmy Carter, did you see Jimmy Carter's op-ed, 91 years old, in the New York Times about a week ago, in which he says we have to build a coalition, whether we like it or not, with Iran and Russia, because that's the only way. Is that past the laugh test or no?
I think it's real. I think you do have to build coalitions with everyone you can in that region. And we use this axiom all the time when we talk about the Middle East, that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And that is very much at play right now in the Middle East. The truth is, counterinsurgency is endless. It is forever. It's very hard to fight disproportionate warfare where you have a big army like the one the United States has trying to fight against units like that of ISIS, where they are ingrained into the population, and they're always going to be, we're always going to struggle. The key thing is not to forget, it's not only a military conflict, it's also a conflict about ideas.
30 seconds is all I have. Speaking of ISIS, are they responsible for the downing of that plane?
We're going to find out, but it's hard to imagine a plane falls apart in the sky. I think that ISIS has certainly the intention to take it down. They claimed responsibility. Right. I think we're going to have a lot of questions about that, and it'll take a while to find out, just as it did with TW 800.
Charlie Sennott, good to see you as always.
Good to see you.
Thanks for your insight.